Okay, hi everybody. It's Dan Cerrucci. I'm with Lisa DePaulo, and
I,
this is exciting. I love talking to Lisa. Lisa, how are you?
I'm great, and I love talking to you.
I
Last
don't know.
time was so fun.
I feel like honored to be able to have this conversation with you. I really do because I've read your stuff. I'm familiar, by the way. She's a legendary writer. She's a fantastic writer. She's written for all kinds of national magazines. I think she might be planning to write a book
Yeah,
soon. She
and
may already be working on it. I don't know.
yeah, and you help me with this because you bring back so much of the stuff from my career, and it helps me.
Okay. All right. I'm going to do that. Now, let me go on Facebook. I want to make sure, Lisa, that we are on Facebook because a lot of people have asked about this conversation.
Yeah.
They want to be able to watch it. And I want to make sure that it's up there on Facebook Live.
Can
And
you tag me so it's on my page too?
yeah, we're going to do
Good.
that.
Good.
Um, we're going to do that. There it is. There it is. And I'm going to put it, I'm going to open it to public. I'm now doing edit audience and I'm saying public
Good.
can see this.
Good.
And now, well, wait a minute. It's not allowing me to share though. Wait a minute. It says one share, one person. Oh, it says Dan Cerrucci is sharing it. So So I guess because I opened it to public, that means I'm sharing it with
Yeah,
everybody. So
I
you
think so.
so you should be able to see it too. Now I'm also telling people that they can watch this uh, live video cast on my
You too.
YouTube channel,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you where my YouTube, how you can get to my YouTube channel. Um, Here it is. You just go to youtube.com/ at Dan Cerrucci /streams. That's youtube.com/ at Dan Cerrucci /streams. And it's there on my YouTube page. Now, the other thing is that it's on Twitter. It's on my Twitter page.
Good.
And also, immediately following this video cast, I'm going to put it on my blog where all of my writing is, dancerrucci.com. And my
Awesome.
blog is also an aggregator of all of the articles and things that I want to share with people.
Awesome. I love it.
So now that we got through all of that, and I hope people do find it because
Yeah.
I don't know. I see our friend Carol Felton Shore is on here. She's watching us. Hi, Carol.
Hi,
There's a
Carol.
lot. There's a lot of people that I love Carol. She's one of the
She's a
best.
wonderful person.
There are a lot of people that wanted to watch this tonight, and we've been trying to help them to find how they can watch it. But believe me, if you don't see it tonight, it'll be permanently at dancerrucci.com.
Thank
Okay, so Lisa DePaulo, this is so exciting, but this is what I want to know because you're originally from Scranton.
Yep.
Did I already ask you this about the whole Joe Biden and Scranton thing? I mean,
Yeah.
how do the people in Scranton really feel about Joe Biden?
Like everywhere else. Love
Like
or hate.
everywhere else.
You know, Scranton really is representative of the country. I always say, as Scranton goes, so goes the country. It
Okay.
used to be Peoria years ago. You know,
Okay.
Scranton is now ground zero for political campaigns. And
Really?
mhm, mhm. And it's the city in the swing state for most important elections. I mean, for presidential elections. And so Scranton's very similar to what the country is, love him or hate him. Now, it's a different kind of love because they feel like he's one of them, right?
Okay.
And Joe does take great pride in Scranton. When I interviewed him years ago on Air Force Two when he was vice president.
Right.
As soon as he knew I was from Scranton, that was it. I was in.
That was it.
Uh-huh.
But Lisa, he left there when he was a little boy. Wasn't he?
11.
He was a little boy when he left, wasn't he?
He was 11.
What?
He was 11 years. He was 11 years old.
11
And
years old.
but he still had family there. So he'd go back and they'd go to the lake and, all that stuff you do in Scranton. So he left when he was 11, but when his father got a job somewhere else, because his father
Okay.
was out of work for a long time.
So
But
what was it like mythologized, whatever the word is, romanticized in his mind? Is that what it was? That this town that he lived in till he was 11 years old became what? Sort of
right,
mythologized or romanticized in his mind?
definitely. But also, I mean, Scranton is hard scrabble, and he would prefer having that image than the suburbs of Wilmington, Delaware, right?
Right.
I mean,
The cushy suburbs of Wilmington, Delaware.
although the cushy suburbs did not come until much later. Like when he was growing up, the family never had anything, right?
Okay.
Um, but he eventually, went to college, went to law school, and
Right.
became a senator, the youngest senator,
Oh,
you know,
yes.
and was sworn in to the Senate like within months of that horrible crash that killed his wife and daughter.
Right, right,
So,
right.
you know, um, but I do believe that his heart is from Scranton.
It's
He
still
has
from
that.
Scranton.
Yeah, I do.
Well, now I read the piece that you wrote. You wrote a big piece about Bill Clinton when he was going back to Arkansas to campaign for
Yeah.
Pryor. And your piece was very prophetic because you were watching that campaign and you talked to countless people who knew Bill Clinton. Uh,
Mhm.
Joe Biden did not have as tough an upbringing as Bill Clinton. Is that right?
I think that is correct. I mean, Bill Clinton, it was tough. I mean, his mother, you know, uh, I mean, I liked her. She went through a lot, and as a result, he went through a lot. I mean, think about it. His father was killed on the way home when he was still, he wasn't even born yet.
His father
His
was
father,
killed. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he had it really tough, really tough.
I heard his mother was quite a gambler. Was she a bit of a
Yes,
gambling addict? His mother.
she was.
Uh
She was
huh.
a big gal. She was a
Yes.
character, you know. I think it's interesting. Hillary eventually became very close with Virginia, but in the beginning, Virginia wanted Bill to marry like a beauty queen. She didn't want him marrying Hillary. So
Right.
it took a while for Hillary, and I give her credit for forging a relationship with her mother-in-law, which couldn't have been easy.
No, because this woman, and she was a strong woman, but
Yep.
she was, you know what she sort of reminded me of? Um, she sort of reminded me of Chris Christie's mother. Chris Christie's mother, Sandy, was
Oh, I
known
don't
to be known to be a very strong, argumentative, shall we say, vivid personality.
I don't
And
I didn't
yeah, and Christie was very much in the same manner as Clinton, very close to his mother and very affected by
That's so
his mother's
interesting.
passing.
Oh, wow, that's I didn't know that about Christie. I do feel that Virginia Clinton, oh, she was a piece of work, really. I mean, she was a gambler. She had a ton of men. Um, there was an early piece, one of the very first issues of Talk magazine, that tried to psychoanalyze the Bill thing, and it came down to Hillary would admit this, that a lot of his problems, the womanizing and all that, are of his issues with his mother.
Issues with his mother, and then of course, his father died. It was
Yeah,
his father was his father an alcoholic?
I don't know that.
Was
I
was
don't
he
know.
he was killed in an automobile accident?
Right, right. But the father who adopted him might have been.
Right.
I'm not sure. I'm not
Okay.
sure. There was a
Okay.
lot of bad stuff in his early years.
Yeah,
It's amazing,
a
that
rough
he.
upbringing, and you talked
Right.
to a lot of these people in Arkansas. Did you sense at the time, Lisa, that you were covering this Democratic candidate who was running for reelection? I guess it was prior. But did you sense at the time that Arkansas was shifting right,
Oh,
that
absolutely.
it was becoming a red state?
Absolutely. And I wasn't the least bit surprised that Tom Cotton won. He won
Yeah,
that race. And
yeah,
I was not surprised. It was a big shift. No, well, I don't know if it was big, it was gradual. But when I
yeah,
was there, it was more red than blue, and the people I talked to.
yeah. And
Absolutely.
now the Republicans have the whole state. I mean, they pretty much have the whole state. And
And yet
Cotton,
Sarah,
what?
Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Bill's mansion.
She's
Amazing
in
how
the
people.
governor's mansion now. I think that Cotton
Think
is
about it.
Cotton he comes across to me now as a very smart guy, very smart, very quick. He's emerging now as the number one sort of expert on China and the threat of China. Okay. So I think, regardless of your politics, Lisa, you got to keep an eye on this guy. He's smart.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I he has, yeah, he has a very, he has the military background, the
Right.
education, you know. Yeah.
Right. So then I read a piece that um, you did a piece with Ivanka Trump. You spent some time with Ivanka Trump. What was that? And that was like when her father was running, right?
I did, yeah, I did two pieces on her. One when he's running, and that I was just with her a short amount of time. And before then, I did a big piece for in GQ on her, and she was like, "Oh my God," she was amazing. I was, she was an intimidating woman.
Intimidating.
Yeah, yeah, because she had it all going on. This was before her father became a candidate. Now, when I interviewed her when her father was a candidate, I knew she was full of shit. She was saying things that, like my role, like, what's your role going to be, Ivanka? Oh, my role is daughter. Oh, really? Like working in the White House. I mean, eventually she was working in the White House, but she gave me so much like bull. She was just a daughter. She wasn't going to get involved. She wasn't involved in the campaign. She told me one of the biggest ones.
She did tell you, though, Lisa, that if her father won, which when you were writing this article, absolutely nobody thought that was going to happen.
No,
Absolutely nobody, including me. And I'm a Republican, okay? And I was biting my
no.
fingernails, and I was saying, oh, Jesus, God, what did we get ourselves into this time? So,
Yeah,
no,
you shouldn't say that.
but she did tell you, and see, I seem to recall in this article, she did say that if her dad won, she would definitely have a role.
Yeah, yes, she did.
She would have a
Yeah,
role. She said she would have
yeah,
a role,
I know. I
and
guess I
she
didn't.
went right into the White House.
I didn't. That's a big role, like that's a really big role to be working in West Wing. And
Well,
she downplayed. The other thing she said, which I was like, oh, please. I said, I was talking to her about a relationship with Tiffany. And I said, how it must be hard for Tiffany because she knows that you're the favorite it must be hard. And I know you have a good relationship with your sister, but which I did know that, but it has to be hard. And she said, "Oh no, Tiffany's the apple of my father's eye, not me." I was like, "Are you kidding?" So that's the kind of, you know, bullshitter she was.
But when you do these interviews, Lisa, you can't be as demonstrative and outspoken and frank as we are right now because
No,
you're trying to get
absolutely,
information from these people,
absolutely. But
and you're trying
yeah,
to lead them along, coax them along,
absolutely.
right?
But by the time you're done, you have formed an opinion that you didn't have walking into the interview. By the
Okay,
time I was done, I thought, she's full of shit. But I did, I
okay,
liked her. I liked her a lot more the first time I interviewed her.
okay,
And she was, she was impressive.
yeah,
She was smart. She was impressive. Oh, and she did these photos for GQ that were like bombshell, you know,
right,
like
yes.
sexy, sexy bombshell.
Right. And of
And
course, she's beautifully attired and
yeah, yeah,
coiffured and
yeah,
perfectly made up and so forth and so on. You know, let me ask you this: when you do these stories, when you go out on assignment, and well, first of all, I wanted to ask you, um, are you very instinctive about people? Do you get instinctive feelings about people right away?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
you do,
yeah. And you know what? I really try to go into it with as an open mind as possible. I love that when I was a political reporter, I didn't have a side. People
right?
would say, "What's her politics?" And they should say, "What's her politics?" No, you shouldn't know. And when it started to be that reporters would say, like, hang their flag, "I'm a liberal, I'm a conservative." I think that was bad for reporting. I don't think
Yes.
people should know. And I remember, like, even years ago, like when I wrote about Rendell, and I had all these conservatives saying, "Yeah, you go, girl." It never crossed my mind that when I was writing, like, "Oh, he's a Democrat." It never crossed my mind. He was a mayor.
Okay, but you did like Rendell. You were a fan,
Oh, I
weren't you?
did. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
He did a great
because
job.
I think, I don't share his politics, at least not right down the letter of the line,
Right.
but I always liked him, and because he's so authentic, or at least he appears to be.
He is. And, you got to, whatever your politics are, he was good for the city of Philadelphia.
Oh, yes.
He was great for the city of Philadelphia.
Yes.
And that's why I think mayors, like, it's almost irrelevant what party they are, because
That's right.
the mayor's job is not a partisan job.
That's right.
And, that's why I'm looking at the field of mayoral candidates now. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I feel.
You haven't made up your mind, Lisa, if
In
you
the
were to vote
beginning,
today?
I was very, I wanted to see Alan Dom do it. Um, I think he still can. Um, I worry that he has, well, he's his interests in real estate are so
Mm,
vast.
yes.
That worries me a little bit. And but also he needs an injection of Ed Rendell. He needs some
Yes.
of that passion and
Yes.
enthusiasm.
Yes.
I do think Alan Dom cares,
Oh,
but
I
it
do too.
doesn't come across.
It doesn't seem to come it hasn't seemed to come across yet. And,
Right.
we were sort of talking about this, Lisa, and we said, uh, that if you and I were advising him,
Yeah.
I'm sure we would begin by trying to peel away any veneer whatsoever and tell him to simply open up and be himself. If he's angry, if he's passionate, if he's whatever, show it, be it.
I think we would be able to get that out of him. Um, I don't know who his consultants are, but
I don't either.
they're not doing it. Hey, Dan, am I looking in the right place?
Yeah, you're doing fine now. You're doing fine.
Where to look?
You're doing fine. You're doing fine. You're doing fine. So the other thing I wanted to ask you, when you write these articles, like I think you and I are both people persons. So
Yeah,
when we go to write a story, we're interested in the people, the persons, the personalities, and what makes them tick. But
exactly.
when you interview these people, um, how do you organize everything to then go and write the article? Because you write some really significantly long pieces, and they're serious pieces, but they're fun pieces at the same
Thank,
time. So you never come across as as effete or lecturing,
thank you.
or you know
Thank you.
it's not like, even if you're writing for an established publication, you don't come across that way. So do you like have an outline that you use? Do you have an outline in your head? How does it happen? How do
Well,
these pieces happen?
you know, well, the first big chunk is the reporting. And when I go in to interview someone, I don't bring a list of questions. I
Uh-huh.
try to let it be a conversation and
Right,
let them themselves.
right,
Hopefully spend a lot of time with them so you could see them in different ways. But
right.
then when I'm writing, it's usually like, the best editing is when you sit down with your editor and say, okay, here's what I got. Here's what happened. Here's what we talked about. And you talk about where to start. And I usually like to, there's the old saying, start in the middle. And that's often what happens. Like you start with this scene that was in the middle,
Right.
or the scene that kind of just, I know will grab the reader. Because you want to grab the reader in the first couple pages, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, first couple pages in print, in pages, but like the first page in a magazine, you
Yeah,
want, like, you don't turn that page unless you were grabbed, right?
right.
So that's what I try to do.
Yeah, let me just absolutely. I mean, in public relations, we call it making a vital link with the audience. You want to make a vital human link with the audience right away. In
Exactly.
public speaking, which I've taught public speaking, and I've helped many people become public speakers. It's one of the things that is most frightening to people is getting up in
But
front of a group of people and speaking. And I say to them, try in the first from the very beginning, make a vital link with your audience, get them on your side, tell a joke, ask a question, say give describe an experience that everyone in the audience can relate to, okay, and then take it from there. And so article, of
yeah,
course, it's a longer form. you're you've got to grab audience. But let me ask you, working with editors, um, a lot of people who edit, how can I put this? A lot of editors
so
are not necessarily good writers themselves. They are tinkerers, and they kind of, some of them are the kind of people that like to pull the wings off of flies. You know?
the best editors are not writers.
Okay,
The best the best editors don't want to be writers.
okay,
They're great at working with the writers and getting the best out of the writer. When an editor wants to be a writer, and I've had editors that try to make try to put their voice into my story. No, no, that doesn't work. And I had an editor at GQ. I used to say, you know what, Andy, you do me better than I do me. And that was what was important, like somebody who, would help make your story better. not
Right.
stupid.
But don't
You know,
but don't put your voice into my story.
correct.
Help to bring my voice out,
Right.
okay?
And the
Better.
thing is, good writers don't need line editors. I mean, we want that at the end, but the really good editing is when you talk it out. You know,
Okay.
I've had some, my best editors were editors that talked it out with me, not, wrote, scribbled on a page. Sorry, that's my dishwasher.
Oh, no, 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 yeah, don't worry about it. I agree. I agree. Someone who scribbles on the page is basically being professorial. Okay,
Correct.
you're not looking for a professor. You're looking for
Right. Right.
a partner
Hmm.
that will help you to bring that out.
Or
And
massage it out of you, or say to you, this is great, but that part where we're out here with the person, think about that more. Like that could be stronger.
right,
That's great editing.
yeah, you're
I had a few.
absolutely right. But I think you have benefited from having
Oh,
some very good
totally.
editors. Really,
Very good at.
but you've worked at the top, and you've worked in New York. We already talked about you working for George Magazine and working for JFK Jr. There's an
He's
old
great.
saying, Lisa. I don't know how you feel about this saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. This old saying, I'm sure you've heard it. When you
What?
leave New York, you ain't going nowhere. How do you feel about that saying? When you leave
Well,
New
I always
York,
heard.
you ain't going nowhere.
Have never heard that.
You have it? Okay.
Never. I've heard, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
There you go.
But I had a
So
great time in New York. Great run.
you had a great run. You really did. Absolutely. And I think at the right time in your life, it happened.
Absolutely. Also, it was when magazines were on fire. They were like the
Yeah.
magazine business, it was the best of the magazine business. And that doesn't exist anymore.
No,
You can never,
no.
I could never create that. I can never have that again.
Do you feel a great void
Yeah.
with the so-called death of magazines?
Yes, a huge void. A huge void. Yeah.
I
There are
do.
very few.
I do.
It's
There
terrible.
were magazines that I used to get that I would read. First of all, I couldn't wait for them to arrive. And as soon as they arrived, I would read them cover to cover. Or I'd take one to read for night reading and turn around and suddenly find out, that it was 2 o'clock in the morning and I was still reading it. And I was like, oh shit, I got to go to work tomorrow.
Totally agree. I love that time. I don't, do you have a magazine today that you get that you do that with?
Well, no, no, because I'll tell you what happened. Uh, Spending so much time on
Yeah.
social media and online and all,
Yeah.
what I do, even when I read an op-ed in a newspaper, and I still get the Wall Street Journal delivered, the actual paper delivered every day. But what I find myself doing is after I read the headline and the lead sentence, I skip into the middle of the story
Interesting.
because I'm not, I'm not like programmed or geared anymore to read everything from beginning to end because of spending so much time here
Right.
and reading
Right.
things in the format that it is here, where everything is truncated. It's crazy, isn't it?
Right. We've gotten used to that. I mean, you said earlier, like my stories were very long, and that doesn't happen anymore. I mean, you know, it's really rare for assignments to be long. Nobody wants long. I do
And
think it's going to shift back.
I don't think that young people are capable of sustained silent reading. sustained
Sad.
silent reading. Think about this, which was so important to
Yeah.
us. I mean, you couldn't get into college, let alone get through college, unless you were able to engage in sustained silent reading. Okay, I mean, it
You
just
know
wasn't
something?
possible. Now, I know people that are in college that haven't read many books, maybe read 2 books. Okay, if they had to do a book report in high school, they watched the movie.
Only that, nobody takes a book to bed, like a magazine to bed. They take their gadget, you know, they take
Yeah,
their iPad. And I still like, whenever I buy a book, I buy a hardcover. I like
right,
that. I don't
right.
want to read it. I don't want a Kindle or whatever that is. I don't want that. Although it's probably going to get to a point where I'm going to have to.
I've read books on the, what do you call it, on a tablet. Okay,
Huh?
and I haven't enjoyed it as much as reading an
No, I
actual book. But you have to remember, when I read a book, I don't look at the number of pages. I always start on the very first page,
yep.
and for 90% of the books that I read them all the way through to the end. Even if I'm not enjoying it that much, I feel I have to read it through and finish it.
I
So
agree.
it's
I
like a
mean,
weird thing. It's like a
we're
weird.
used to that. Like, I
I,
don't know how people read everything on a phone. I
has this meant for you that you have to write shorter pieces now, or has it affected your writing, Lisa?
Oh, yeah, but that's why I'm trying to write a book because, you know, the kind of stories that are out there to do. I was saying to somebody the other day, I used to love crime stories when I was at Philly Mag,
Yes,
and even at George, I did a couple, and, other pla not as many as I would like, but,
right.
you know, oh god, I'd love to do that again.
Yeah,
Nobody's assigning the great murder, nobody's assigning it, and the ones that get attention are because they're celebrities,
right.
and then they're all over, Court TV or, all the cable shows, and you don't have that great juicy article that you could rip apart and devour. It's just not happening.
Well, speaking of crime and crime stories, though, you did a big story. This was a while ago, but this gentleman is back in the news. You did a big story on Joe Tacopina, who's, and I just love saying his name, Joe Tacopina. I just love it. And that story was when he was doing the Natalie Holloway
Yeah,
murder, and he was representing the alleged murderer, a guy who I think was eventually convicted, right?
uh,
Was he
Jor
convicted?
Joran van der Sloot
Yes.
was, convicted of killing a different woman
Okay.
in Peru after Natalie disappeared. So he's in jail for murder, but Natalie's body was never found. He was never charged with her murder.
Oh, God.
And Tacopina was representing him.
Yeah, and you wrote a story called 1-800 Save My Ass.
Yeah,
About Tacopina.
I love that
And,
title. I
and
did not write it. I
I
loved it.
have to tell you, as I read the story, I felt like I was right there with Tacopina in Aruba.
Thank you. Thank you. That's the
You
nicest
know,
thing you
I
can say.
I felt, well, I'm a very visual person.
Yeah,
And so the whole scene was clear to me. Okay.
it's a lot of fun.
Tacopina in a suit on the beach, losing his cell phone,
Yeah,
ordering functionaries around like a potentate.
yeah.
Okay.
It
And
was
there's
appropriate.
Lisa, and there's Lisa in the middle of this. So what it was like is like Lisa puts herself in your place. It's like the reader is now Lisa, and
Thank you. That's the
they're
nicest compliment.
thrust into this situation with this high powered.
Yeah.
You see I've known lawyers like this. Okay.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun to hang out with for, gosh, about a
Yeah.
month, really. We did all sorts of things.
Exudes confidence,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Hey, I
So,
think he's, doing a good job. Do you?
oh yeah, I mean, I sent you a thing where the people inside the Trump camp now are turned off by him.
Oh, sure, they're threatened by him. And you know what, though,
Threatened.
Joe? Yeah, he's easy to, but you know what? He really, this was true when I wrote about him 13 years ago. He wins. He wins, and he's not going to win with Trump. Sorry, that's not going to happen. But he wins. He's gonna win
So
some battles with Trump, like getting things delayed and things thrown out. He'll win all that. What Joe is really great at is cross examination.
okay.
But because Stormy Daniels called his firm, he has a conflict. So he's already told the judge that he will not cross examine her,
Oh,
which has to be a blow to Trump because that's Joe's specialty, cross examine.
right. But do you think they're going to get Trump on this New York charge, or is it going to be something bigger?
I think they're definitely going to get him on the Georgia charge.
The Georgia
Yeah,
charge,
and on the you know,
January 6th?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and the documents. I think, I
Oh, the
think,
documents.
yeah, the one that sounds the weakest is the Stormy thing. Um,
Yeah.
just because visions of John Edwards, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the question is, did you do this to win an election, or did you do this because you didn't want your wife to be mad at you or your son? Now, there's enough evidence so far that he wanted it for the election, like he wasn't that concerned about Melania. But that's a great argument. I mean, look at Edwards. I mean, millions from these donors, and it went straight to keeping Real company. I mean, keeping Real okay.
And he lied through his teeth.
That
He
was the
lied.
hardest part with him because I wrote a big, the first, Riel did the first interview after the scandal with me. And that was the hardest part, that John Edwards had the audacity to go on television and say, that's not my child, knowing full well it was his child. And you can say whatever about her, but guess what? You don't do that to your kid. That kid has to grow up, and she's old enough now to know that her father denied being her father. So that was this, and that really was the thing that hurt Riel the most, that he would deny paternity.
Uh, I think things like that did so much to destroy faith in our system and in
Absolutely.
democracy itself, to restore faith in the whole system, not just in the candidates. I mean, but it created such cynicism. And of course, the whole Lewinsky affair contributed to that as well.
Sure.
Um, and there were other instances and other matters, but it just in our lifetime, I've seen such a
And
disintegration.
now, how do you, as a Republican,
Right.
feel about Trump paying off a porn star? How do you
Well, here's the thing. We all knew this about Trump beforehand. Okay, he never pretended to be pious or above reproach or anything like that. Okay, with John Edwards, it was different. I mean, this man,
right?
he was not a celebrity. He was not
Yeah.
any of these things. But Trump, we
Right.
knew these
Right.
things about him. He had been through messy divorces. He traveled in those circles.
That's
He
true.
was lustful. He had a gargantuan appetite. We suspected that he had a huge sexual appetite. Okay. So I know, and I'm not asking you to We
Although
look out at our
when
picture, and I'm
he
just
was
saying he
younger,
was.
he wasn't gross, okay?
He
There was
wasn't.
an attractiveness to Trump when he was young, and I knew him in Atlantic City in, like, oh god, 82, I mean, 83, 84.
Right.
Um, and he wasn't repulsive at all. In fact, he was charming, he was dashing, and he seemed like the one who was gonna be the great, bring everything great to Atlantic City. And he's the one that ran his casinos into the ground. He's the one that, how do you go bankrupt? How do you bankrupt 3 casinos? I mean, casinos print money.
I don't know, but you worked for Atlantic City Magazine, was it?
Yeah,
And you did this wonderful piece about interviewing Joan Rivers
yeah,
and how gracious she was and how kind she was. You were a young
yeah.
reporter at the time
It was
for
20.
Atlantic City Magazine,
Mhm.
and you went to the
Yeah.
Resorts International, to Joan Rivers' suite, and got an interview with her. And tell us what it was like.
She was my very first celebrity interview. And I was a kid. I was, well, 21 or 22. It was my first job out of college. And she was wonderful. She knew I was a kid, like I
Right.
had not done this before, and she helped me. She would, like, you know, made it so easy for me, and was so warm and kind, and, well, funny, 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 of course, but she just was right. I just loved her. And over the years, I had reason to interview her again. I think I did another big story on her years later. She still was that way. Like, she just, I remember when I was leaving the interview, and she was asking me all kinds of questions, like, "Do you have a boyfriend? What's he like? Blah, blah, blah." I said, "Yeah, but he's a jerk." And she was like, as I was leaving, she said, "Here, take this." She was pulling, like, bottles of expensive champagne off the shelves in her suite,
Uh-huh.
saying, "Take this, drink it with your boyfriend." And I said, "I can't, no, I can't take a gift." I was like, even
You
that
were
at that
so
age,
innocent. You were so
and had all the ethics of a journalist, right? So I can't take it. "Oh, please take it. They're a rich company." That's how she was. And one of my favorite things she told me the very first interview, my very was how, when she stayed in a hotel, she took all the things in the, like, all the little miniature soaps and shampoos and everything
right.
home with her. And back in Beverly Hills, she had this closet that was filled with little miniature bottles, because she said, "If I ever lose it all, I'll have it." I mean, hooks me up, because she really was afraid of that. She was afraid that she would lose it all.
I think that was very ethnic. It was very ethnic.
You're right.
Uh, Afraid that she would lose it all.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
did you ever see the documentary Joan Rivers, A Piece of Work?
It's fantastic.
Isn't it amazing?
It's fantastic.
It's
And
a
one of my interns at Atlantic City Magazine, Jonathan Van Meter, um, became a huge magazine writer. He still is. And he did the best pieces on her, the
Is
best.
that right?
And he also was very close with her. Like, he was
Wow.
someone that was called at the very end to say goodbye.
I loved the scene in the documentary where she had been, I don't know, she was playing some mid-level casino somewhere in Padunkville. And she came back to New York, and her driver dropped her off at her townhouse. And she said, and she went back into this beautiful, it was exquisite place that she had set up there in Manhattan.
Oh,
And she said, yeah, and she said, "Oh, there's nothing like being in your own bed." And every time I come home from a trip, I think about that. I
She
say, "Oh,
absolutely
there's nothing like
right.
being in your own bed." I mean,
She was so wonderful, and, you know, the way she died was horrible. That
awful.
was such a horrible malpractice, and, she had done a show the night before. I mean, she was what, 82 when she died?
Ugh,
But she had a good 10 more years in her
I
perf
had tickets to see her in Atlantic City, and she died before I was able to see her.
Really? Oh
Yes.
god.
Yes, she was going to be appearing at, I think it was Borgata, and I had tickets. I was so looking forward to it. I never saw her perform in person,
Her and she
and
was
I never got to see her.
and, she would have worked, I think, another 10 years easy, because she was, you know, best.
She was she was a very, very hard worker. I
Mhm.
don't know that people realize this about her. She was a very hard worker. And then how about how she kept the thousands and thousands of jokes filed on index cards?
Oh, I loved her. Oh, that huge thing where she had, like, that was unbelievable. I wonder what Melissa did with that. I hope she kept it. It was like an
Well,
old
Melissa did put out a book. It was almost like a scrapbook
right,
of,
that was nice. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
of with reminiscences of her mother. Then you did a piece on the Kardashian matriarch. What is her name?
Kris Jenner.
Kris
Kris
Jenner,
Jenner, yeah, like Caitlyn's.
Kardashian Jenner,
Yeah,
or
she was the
something.
one married to Caitlyn.
She
Yeah,
was married to
Jenner.
Caitlyn. Oh my lord!
Oh my lord.
So uh, I have to tell you, full disclosure, I have never seen an episode of the Kardashians. I've never watched it.
I haven't either.
Okay. I never had any real interest in it. I know the entire world watched it. Um, but I read your story on Kris Jenner, where she well, first of all, she's a very successful businesswoman.
I mean, what she did with her daughters, I mean, she created this empire with her daughters. They're all extremely wealthy. She's she was the ultimate momager, the ultimate. I respected her. I admired her.
She was very honest about the end of her marriage to Robert Kardashian,
Yes, yes,
where she allowed herself to be seduced by a young soccer player
yeah,
and had an affair with him.
yeah. There was a lot of that. And remember, she was very close friends with Nicole Brown Simpson.
Oh, there you are.
So there
And
was,
her husband then defended
yeah, Kardashian ended up defending.
O.J. Simpson.
And there were a lot of rumors that she had an affair with OJ.
Oh, well. But she presents herself as a very religious person or spiritual person.
Spiritual,
She she
right?
she,
I liked Chris.
she prays. She was now. What do you make of this whole Kanye thing and the anti-Semitism and all that? What is it with Kanye?
He's nuts. He's nuts. I mean, I think he's seriously mentally
Uh-huh.
ill. He has serious psychological issues.
Uh-huh.
Um, at the time I interviewed Chris, she loved her son-in-law, loved Kanye, thought he was brilliant, all this.
Yes, she said that, right.
Yeah, yeah. I
Well,
wonder
do you
how she
think
feels
he is very, very, very smart?
now. In the way that she valued smart, in that, he was he knew how to sell himself. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
Like Kim did, and she admired that. She admired that, but
mhm.
I can't imagine that she still admires him, given the things that he has said and done.
Right,
I don't think she would.
right. Um, he got himself into quite a mess now, and
Oh yeah, as he should be.
But then I thought it was
Hey,
very,
and Trump was buddies with him, remember?
who?
Your buddy Trump was buddies with Kanye.
Oh, yes, that's correct. He had him to the White House. But I wasn't all, I see, I thought all that was kind of refreshing. You see, I sort of liked an outsider coming in and scaring the shit out of established Washington.
Well, that's true.
There was something
like
about that there's something about me that has always liked the outsider who comes in and shakes things up. For example, I was a big fan of the late, most people now won't even know who we're talking about, of the late Bella Abzug, a
She was awesome.
congresswoman from New York.
She
Okay, way ahead of her time.
Yes, definitely.
And she went to Washington and scared the shit out of people.
You're right. You're right.
And I love when anybody comes in to an established order and does that.
You're right. So
And what more powerful or established order is there than
the White House.
deep state Washington?
You're right. Who's doing it now, though? I don't know. Is anybody?
Well, who could do it now? At that level?
Hey, what do you think about? I know it's early, but what do you think about the possible GOP candidates for president in 24? Like,
Okay.
tell me.
First of all, I think that I don't think it would be necessarily wise for the Republican Party to nominate Trump again. I really think this country has got to get past Trump and Biden, both of them.
I agree.
We must
Agree.
get past both of them.
And-
They are so old, Lisa,
Mhm.
that they aren't even boomers. Okay. Well, maybe Trump could sort of qualify as a boomer.
No. He's almost 80.
Trump,
Yeah.
he's a little bit younger than Biden. He's younger than Biden.
78.
What is he?
Trump's 78.
Is he?
Yeah. So, but you know what?
So we got to get past both of them. Now, once we get beyond that, who is intriguing?
Right.
Here's the way I see it. I'm hopeful that among the potential candidates in the Republican Party, someone will emerge. I don't know that it's going to be DeSantis. He's gotten off to a difficult start.
Yeah.
He's gotten off to now. He better decide pretty soon whether he's running or not.
You're right.
Because if he takes too long, the window's going to close,
I agree.
and he better get his act together.
Also, is it true that he really doesn't have charisma in person?
I don't know. I've never met him in person.
And I can't tell from the clips of him. I can't tell.
It is sort of hard to tell at this point. One person who intrigues me, and I really liked his announcement of his exploratory committee, is Tim Scott.
I was wondering what you thought of him.
I've always been sort of intrigued with him, with his story. He's got a compelling story, and he doesn't seem to polarize people. He seems like the type of person who could bring people together.
I agree. Also, who was it that said yesterday that Tim Scott announced his candidacy for vice president? You think that's what he wants?
Well, they were talking about that on Kale and Company in the morning.
Okay.
On Kale and Company. Look, if the nominee is Trump again, the vice president that he chooses is going to be very important, because you can even picture him serving more than one term. Okay.
No, but
so he would have to choose a really, really good person. A lot of people say Nikki Haley would be the obvious choice.
I don't think she'd do it.
What?
I don't think she'd do it.
Yeah. Well, there, I don't think she's that jazzed about Trump
I mean,
anymore.
for the Republican Party, which I miss the Republican Party the way it used to be.
Well, guess what? I miss the Democratic Party the way it used to be. You have to remember, I was a Democrat. I used to be a Democrat. I was a liberal Democrat. Okay,
For
so
how long?
I miss the Democrat Party.
Yeah, yeah. They're both
Okay, I think what we miss is people that can work across the lines, as you said. You didn't even think with a person like Rendell, and even when he was governor, you
right.
didn't think of him in terms of Democrat Republican.
I did not. No,
We thought of him as Ed Rendell,
correct.
and he was trying to
We need
make things work.
we need more of that at the, you know, but I think the Republican Party is in deep, deep shit if Trump runs again.
Mm.
I do.
Because how is he going to get past his base?
Right.
Oh, what's left of it?
Well, he's not going to, and you're right. The base is so it's dwindled so much since his time. Look, even in New York City, he called them out. Come protest. He did a lot of the same things he did before January 6th. Nobody showed. There was no
Yeah.
protest. His base is he can't win with that base.
You have to remember though that Republicans aren't as good as protesting in the streets and demonstrating as liberal progressives are. They
Right.
aren't as organized. You want to know why? Because Republicans are too busy working and making a living, Lisa. They're busy working and
Okay.
making a living. That's
Wow.
why. They
Wow.
don't. They don't. They're not. Yes, for the most part. For the
Look,
most part. There, I said it. I put it out there. I said it. There.
right?
But the Democrats and the progressives have become very, very good at organizing protests, getting people on the street. They're
But
very
not a lot of
strategic, and they have the support of the media, Lisa, and academia, and now the corporate world. That's pretty powerful.
well, the media is a big question because no media was more powerful than Fox, although that's going to change too with the Dominion suit. I mean, the Dominion suit's a big deal for Fox.
Mhm. Yeah, but that was the only conservative media. You guys had ABC, CBS, NBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, PBS. I mean, come on, Lisa.
Well, yeah, but the conservative media had, I don't know, a bigger megaphone. I mean, look at what Rush, nobody on radio compared to Rush. The liberals didn't have anybody on radio, right?
Wasn't it wonderful?
Another,
You have to admit, he was a master of radio.
he was.
He
So
was a
was
master of his
O'Reilly.
art.
O'Reilly was a master of television. Whatever. Now, where is he now? Because he got Me Too'd out.
He's on. He writes those books, killing this one, killing that one. I think he's on his 267th book.
Killing
And
this.
he doesn't write them. We all know he doesn't write them.
Of course,
You've known people, Lisa, haven't you, who wrote books but they didn't write a word?
sure.
Yeah,
We know some of the same people that have done that.
we do, don't we? Well, we're not going to tell, though, are
It's
we?
a nice gig if you can get it,
Have you ever been asked to be a ghostwriter? Have you ever done ghostwriting?
I was
You were.
infamously
Oh
for Janine Pirro, who is insane.
no.
It did not end well.
No.
Yeah,
Janine Pirro. Judge Janine.
it's nuts.
She's on Fox now. You know, I've got to be very honest with you. I don't watch her when she's on Fox. You know why?
Why?
Her voice
Oh, yeah.
her voice sounds like somebody's fingernails on a chalkboard.
Oh,
Okay?
it's the worst.
I
Even
hear her voice and I go, ah.
I yeah, that'll do it.
So it didn't end well.
No,
Well, I hope you got paid.
it's a long story.
It's a long story.
But I'm not, I never wanted to ghostwrite because,
Right.
I don't know. I wanted
If
to
you
write
ghost
about,
write, then you would have had to be in public relations like me.
yeah, that's
And
just,
I don't think you wanted that.
I don't know.
You know, the first thing I was taught by an old master in public relations
What?
said to me, kid, if you want to be in this business, you got to have a passion for anonymity.
Interesting. You're right. You're right. You have
No,
to let everybody else be the star of the movie.
you can never show your hand. And I sat there and read columns by people that I wrote and listened to speeches by people that I wrote. And it made me feel so good. They got such wonderful applause.
Yeah, you're right. That's hard to do.
And
Is it
I
hard
always
to do?
remembered the lesson that I learned from my mentor. You got to have a passion for anonymity. And so I did until I retired.
Do you miss it?
I'm not retired. I'm refired. Let me correct that. I'm refired.
What does
Do
that
I
mean?
miss it? I miss the people, the characters, because
Yeah.
I worked for 14,000 prima donnas, and they were all, especially the trial lawyers, my favorite group,
Oh,
because
yeah,
they were the biggest characters,
I'll bet.
and I loved hanging out with them.
I love trial lawyers.
Aren't they amazing?
Like, there's nothing more exciting than watching a good trial lawyer in a courtroom.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
They are the gladiators of the legal profession. I call them the gladiators.
they're amazing. It's the sexiest thing there is, Dan,
Oh,
is watching a trial lawyer.
very, very sexy. And that goes, for both genders. I mean,
Oh, yeah, totally.
absolutely.
It's amazing.
Absolutely. And the really successful women trial lawyers were women who could get right in there with the guys.
Mhm.
They didn't care about decorum. They didn't care about
Right.
being offended, not being offended. They just, I spoke to several of them, and they all said the same thing. I I always knew I could do this, and I always more enjoyed the company of men. Okay. Now that was in that day that I was working. It may be different now,
Yeah,
but they all knew that they could do it.
yeah.
And
Well, you had
they,
to enjoy the company of men if you wanted to be a
you
star.
you had to. And nothing could offend them or deter them. Nothing could deter them or offend them. Okay.
Right. It's true about journalism too. You better like the company of men at the time I came up
That's
because,
right.
everybody, all the big editors were guys. Um,
Right. And you were working in those newsrooms and in that environment,
right.
and you had to get right in there. But I think instinctively you knew exactly what to do, Lisa, and
Mhm.
it showed. And it
Fortunately,
showed.
the magazine people never had a newsroom. We would but I wish I had spent time in the newsroom. It's very exciting.
Oh, yes. And our friend Stu Bykowski wrote a book. He just wrote a book called Press Card, I think it's
Yeah,
called.
yeah, yeah. I have to
I
read.
read it. I
Yes,
read it. It's a lot of fun.
good, good.
And he's one of the old school
He is.
reporters,
He
isn't he?
really is. Absolutely. He really
He's one of the reasons why we love Philly, right?
absolutely. No,
How did you
Stu's great.
how did your love affair with we're going to end with this, Lisa, because
Yeah,
we're right at about an hour.
sure.
How did your love affair with Philly begin? How did that start? I know you adore Philadelphia. You're like a Philly addict.
It began in college. I went to Penn
Uh-huh.
and from Scranton,
Uh-huh.
and you know, everything was magical, you know. I mean, coming from, well, actually a little town outside of Scranton called
Okay.
Dunmore, and I loved Penn, and it was so exciting. And you know, although I did go into my advisor like 3 weeks into my freshman year and said, "This must be a mistake. I must be a mistake." Because everybody had like 1,600 board, you know, SATs, and wow. I said, "How did I get in here?" And you know, he told me, he said, "You weren't a mistake. You were a small town exception."
There you go. And he was honest with
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
And
But I
beautiful.
really was freaking out when I got there because, you know, and Penn, like nobody tells you if they had 1,200 SATs. They tell you if they had 1,600, and that's
Right.
what people tell. Oh, I had 1,580. Oh, I, I was like, this is a mistake. Like, did I address it to Penn State and it went to the wrong place? I mean, how did I get in
Well, I think you landed at the right place, Lisa,
here? I do
and
too.
we're all the better for it, and we're all grateful for it. And
Thank you.
I know
I
that,
was a waitress at Smokey Joe's. You know,
yeah,
that was my education.
and that was the beginning of your love affair with Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
And very few people, I got to tell you this, folks, very few people could be embraced by Philadelphia, then leave Philadelphia to go to New York
Mhm.
and be welcomed back with open arms and with equal, if not more, love and affection when they come back. I've not known of many who've been able to do it, but Lisa DePaulo has been able to do it.
And it's been so much to me. That has been so amazing.
Yeah. And you know what it is? Because Philly, here's that phrase again, it's a Philly thing.
Right.
Philly people know who fits in, who gets Philly
Mm,
and who doesn't.
I think you're right.
Okay?
Thank
They
you.
know. And you've got it, Lisa.
Thanks, Dan. This, you know, you
You
are
get
so good.
you get Philly and Philly gets you.
Thank you. And thank you. You know, you are in the, you prepare on a Smirconish level. He's the most prepared interviewer in the business.
Yeah.
You prepare like Smirconish
Oh,
does.
well, I'm flattered, especially since, you know, Lisa, Smerconish has people. Okay. He's
Right.
got a lot of people.
But you know, he reads
And
it.
Danny doesn't have any people. He's just Danny. Okay.
There you go. That's amazing.
I don't
Well,
have people.
you should. You should.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a joy, Lisa. And
Absolute joy.
we will do it again.
Please.
We will.
Good night.
Okay. Have a good evening and and love to your darling, darling. I remember the little dog's name.
Joey.
Joey.
I can't believe he didn't bark through this. He usually barks when I'm on the phone.
Well, he knew you were having fun
I
and he
know.
wanted to leave you alone.
He did
And
make a couple appearances.
a wonderful evening to you and Joey.
Thank you, sweetheart. Good
Good
night.
night.
Bye.
Bye.